So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dalles Chamber of Community Affairs. Today, our guest is Lizzie Keenan. She is the regional lead for the Mount Hood Columbia River Gorge tourism and regional tourism in that area. This is our #1 liaison to Travel Oregon, but she is a go-getter for the region, which we reference Hood Gorge. A lot shorter, a lot easier. And she will be here to give some updates on what we're doing as a region and take some questions at the end. This is the region that the Dalles is a part of, and she is what we call the RDMO, and I am the DMO. So there's lots of acronyms in the tourism world, as there is in everybody else's world, but Lizzie will give you some background on that and kind of what we're doing as a region for as the tourism world. Just so you guys have a little bit before we go into intros. I not only am the marketing arm for the city for tourism, but I am a part of this region. So we're doing some region-wide efforts, as sometimes that gives a little bit bigger footprint and a more effective campaign on what we're doing to get people to the gorge in itself. And believe me, Lizzie has the Dalles at the top of her mind all the time. She is our #1 fan. Just look at her wardrobe when she goes out of the country. It says the Dalles. So anyway, we're super excited that she's here, but let's go around the room because she can know who's on the screen. And I'm going to start with Phil Brady.
Good morning, this is Phil Brady. I'm here at Seattle International Airport, about to head out for 100-degree weather, 100-degree plus weather in Austin, Texas for a commissioner convention. The other commissioners just going with us. Quick update, yesterday at our county commission meeting, we appointed Elaine Albrecht to be our new commissioner for the Columbia Gorge scenic area. Roger Nichols is finishing his term and stepping down. Elaine will step in. She's, if anything, overqualified. She has a bachelor's degree in environmental science, a law degree. She's been working with land use policy and if anything, overqualified for the position. So we're welcoming her aboard, and I think she'll be a great asset for us.
Thank you, and safe flight travels to you.
Thank you.
All right, Scott McKay.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I'm community liaison for Circles of Care. Circles of Care is a nonprofit that connects or matches older adults who need some kind of periodic support with volunteers. And so we're always looking for volunteers. So if you have any extra time, just give me a call. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, Lisa.
And Scott will put you to work. Promise. Sue Davis.
Good morning, Sue Davis. I'm the executive director of the Columbia Gorge Community College Foundation. And our foundation is a 501c3 that works in collaboration with the Columbia Gorge Community College. So we raise money through private fundraising and grant writing primarily for scholarships and other student support for our students across the college. And one thing I will note is our September 9th golf tournament, which is our annual golf tournament. It's our 23rd annual, is officially fully subscribed for teams.
Oh,
so
wow.
We have, it's very exciting. Yes, 25 teams have signed up, and I've got a little, what was that?
I said, I'm so glad you don't want me to golf. You know, I would have filled in, but you don't want me. So
okay.
That's awesome,
yeah.
Sue. That's great.
Yeah, we're very happy about it. And now I'm starting to take a wait list. So if you need to be on the wait list, you just let me know. Also looking for volunteers September 9th. If you feel like joining us, it should be a beautiful fall day and lots of fun to be with the community and celebrate and raise some money.
Great. I'm glad you guys are full. That's good news. Dan Spots.
Thank you, Lisa. Dan Spots transitioned this week from the college to the city of the Dalles. I'm the economic development officer for the city of the Dalles, working with urban renewal, Main Street, Enterprise Zone, the regional airport. One project that I'm continuing to keep a close eye on is development of a public child care center. We toured the former Chenoweth Middle School yesterday with a potential project manager to provide some continuity on that one. And I'll be briefing President Lawson, incoming President Lawson at Columbia Gorge Community College, when he arrives. Had a brief conversation with him last week, and we'll be catching up next week with more detail on that one. Thank you.
Corliss Marsh.
Good morning, everyone. Corliss Marsh with the Gorge Habitat for Humanity and the library and the senior center. And one thing Sue forgot to mention for the foundation is I have raffle tickets for wine, 2 cases of wine. So come and see me if you need a raffle ticket.
You need to come by the office. I might know a few of us who will buy some.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Corliss. Good memory.
It takes a team around here, guys. All right, Rob Garrett.
Good morning, Rob Garrett. Corliss is my boss, so I better get some wine, right? Mid-Columbia Senior Center of the Dalles. We're working on membership, trying to get our membership up numbers a little bit. So we're about 288 right now. It'd be really cool if we could see us at 300 by this year, and then starting next year, get a 300 membership. So if you're interested in becoming part of this Mid-Columbia Senior Center and everything that we do here, come on in or give me a call. I'd love to have you a part of it. And by the way, we're getting new lights next month for the parking lot. So watch us glow. Thank you.
Okay. Breen.
Morning, Breen Goodwin, Columbia Gorge Food Bank. No updates for today.
Thank you for joining. Matt Cole.
Matt Cole, owner, director on IT, all your solutions for anything technology that you can think of.
Okay. So with that, Lizzie, I'm going to let you take over. Do you want to have questions pop up while you're talking, or do you want to wait till the end for questions? I will monitor the screen and the chat for you if you wish.
Yes, that would be great to monitor the chat because I don't always multitask that well when I'm presenting. And I would say since it's a relatively small group, size-wise that I can handle, I think you can ask questions as I talk, and then also I'll have time afterwards. So the presentation isn't too long, but hopefully if anything piques your interest, absolutely jump in, raise your hand. That feature works really well. I can see those pretty well. Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. So if you guys have questions during it, just go ahead and do that. And then I will do my best while she's presenting to make sure that your question is addressed.
Let me get my
Woohoo!
presentation.
You're
Oh, let's see. My presentation is on my other screen. So if you see my eyes going the other way, that's why, but I will try to look at you guys as well. So as Lisa mentioned, my name is Lizzie Keenan. I am the regional lead for the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge Regional Tourism Alliance. We are truly in the middle of a rebrand at the moment. So I am highlighting some of our new logos, but we will, our brand is going to be Experience Mount Hood and the Gorge, mainly because it has been, it is very hard for people to pay attention when I say the entire name of our alliance. Mount Hood and the Columbia River Gorge Regional Tourism Alliance is a big old mouthful. So stringing that down to Experience Mount Hood and the Gorge. So to start off, Lisa kind of explained this a little bit, but I wanted to give you guys some background on how the tourism ecosystem works in Oregon and how you as entities in the Dalles are supported by kind of varying layers of tourism support in the region, or in the region and in the state. So at the top, you have Travel Oregon, which is the state representation. So their job really is to kind of look at the whole scope of the state, what the needs are for tourism, and provide support and marketing for those needs. The layer below them is the RDMOs, which is what Lisa had mentioned. So that's a regional destination management organization. That is what I represent. So there are 7 RDMOs within the state. So there's 7 segregated regions. The RDMO system is part of legislation that was set up, I always forget the date. I think it's been almost 20 years now, maybe. But essentially a portion of so Travel Oregon is funded by a tourism tax dollar on lodging stays. a portion of that money has to go back to the regions that it was collected from. And there's a whole RFP process for entities to kind of be the RDMO. It's on a 6-year cycle. We've been the RDMO for the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region since the program's inception. But the whole idea around that program was that because there are so many small communities and so much of Oregon is rural, that any individual DMO, so that's a destination marketing or management organization, as Lisa mentioned, there's a lot of competition for very limited resource. So to have regional funds where communities that have very aligned kind of tourism experiences could have a shared pot of money to do regional efforts, essentially. And so I've been in the role for 7 years now, and a lot of what we do is try to fill in the gaps of what maybe the individual destinations within our region are unable to do on their own, or things that make a lot more sense to do region-wide than just individually. And so, yeah, so the Alliance is made up of the kind of 4 main DMOs in our region, which is the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce, Visit Hood River, or the Visit Hood River Chamber of Commerce, Explore Troutdale, which is the brand through the city of Troutdale to kind of represent that West Gorge area, and then Clackamas County Tourism, which their brand is Mount Hood Territory. And so the region, I should have put up a map, but it's essentially the Troutdale area all the way east to the Dalles. We took Doofer away from Central Oregon a handful of years ago because they weren't getting the same kind of support. Their alignment to the Gorge was stronger than it was to Central Oregon. And then all of Mount Hood and down to Estacada and kind of back up. So we have sandy, boring. The line barrier that people get confused with is Gresham is not part of our region. It is part of the Portland region. But otherwise, everything in that area is our region. So then, as I mentioned, so you've got the state level, the regional level, and then local representation. So that's like Lisa with the Dalles Chamber. And all of our entities are regularly kind of feeding information up and down that pipeline and working directly with tourism businesses in the Dalles area or any other given community. So the kind of the structure to streamline it is going through your go through your DMO. Lisa updates me on what's happening in the community, what are challenges around visitors, what are opportunities coming. Then I make sure that information, if it's something that we can help with, we will help with. If not, I'm also pushing that information up to Travel Oregon to make sure they're addressing it through their marketing channels, through their development opportunities. And then the same opportunities coming from Travel Oregon, whether they are marketing or grants, which I'll talk about because they do have their grant cycle just opened up. Those things, it's my job to then help disseminate those opportunities back down the channels. So kind of always trying to make sure that any tourism business, whoever they are connected with, there's lots of options to get the right information and kind of get into the system and get the support that they need. And across the board, you know, all of our entities, these tourism entities who are representing businesses, our goal is really of service. You know, the funding comes from a lodging tax that visitors pay when they stay as lodging in Oregon. And our job is to continue to support that system and make sure that our businesses and our communities are thriving. And if they're not, figuring out what are those challenges and how do we help support them to kind of keep that system healthy. And yeah, basically that tourism is always going to be a positive force for good in our area in particular, and not just kind of a negative perception of tourism for residents and beyond. We want to make sure it is a kind of a very fruitful relationship that we are supporting. I will pause. Are there any questions about how this system works? I know it can be complicated. No? Great. Okay. I will go to the next one. So I wanted to share kind of some of our regional goals with you and how kind of where the region is focused on at the moment. These 5 goals we've had for the past, we're going into our 3rd year with the same set of goals. I think they've aligned really with the work that we've been doing for the past 7 years. And to give a little bit of context, when I started the position 7 years ago, or actually right before that, the regional budget that we had was it was maybe about $60,000 a year. And so for the most part, it was investing in a couple of Travel Oregon marketing programs was what the region could invest in kind of strategically, how you use that money. Then the funding changed because Travel Oregon's tourism tax changed. And we went up to $175,000 for the budget. And with that, we were able to hire me, and I was kind of a half-time staff for the region. And we were able to do some more targeted programming for the region. And then our budget bumped up again to $300,000. So I could become closer to full-time, and we run a grant program, we do scholarships, we do a lot of different things with the funding. And this year we're actually going into Travel Oregon bumped up. So they've set a minimum level that all regions should receive. Because our region is quite small compared to the other regions, we're usually on the lowest end of collections for lodging, comparative to like the entire coast, which is a region. So they bumped it up to $400,000. So this coming year, we have a $400,000 budget. So with that, our priorities and our goals are, the first is care for community. So this came out as a really strong priority, particularly from our DMO partners. And we also do a stakeholder survey every 2 years with Travel Oregon. But and through COVID, this is obviously a big priority. We wanted to make sure that our communities are feeling supported by tourism and feel good about what, who is coming in, how visitors are treating the area, and how it's also supporting the area. And one of the big projects to come out of this, which I have listed later, but I'll tell you about now, is we are about to go live, I think it's potentially this week. We're doing a resident sentiment survey, kind of the first big kickoff around this goal. We're doing a resident sentiment survey across the entire region. And out of it, we will have not only a regional report, but also individual community reports. So there will be just the Dalles resident survey and results report that we can share broadly. And the idea and the questions that are inside of that survey are very much kind of identifying what residents prioritize about their quality of life values in community, and also how they are relating those to tourism and how they feel about visitors in community and the ways that does and does not support community life. And so we're hoping that the results from this research will help us either figure out how to better communicate the work that we do, because I know most people don't, the destination level work of a DMO or an RDMO is not widely known across the general public in communities, but also we can better target our programs. If we identify an issue that we didn't know about before, or maybe we've heard from one very loud voice, but weren't clear on whether or not that was a community-wide priority, we'll have better information and we can redirect funding and programming to hopefully address it. So the next priority is destination and visitor management. So for our region, you're all, I'm sure, very well aware, we have a lot of visitors in some areas and not a lot of visitors in other areas. So we have some of the highest visited tourism sites in the state, and neighboring communities to those sites that do not see that same impact or do not feel even the economic impact. And one great example is even just Multnomah Falls. That is a very high use site. And you have Cascade Locks next door who, does pretty well in the summertime, but many visitors do not go beyond Multnomah Falls. They're from Portland, they go to Multnomah Falls and they turn around and they don't, there's no economic impact left in the community that's really just right next door. And for the Dalles, there's a lot of challenges of being very close to Hood River, which is kind of seen and known as this amazing tourism destination, but so is the Dalles. But that mindset of going beyond Hood River can be really hard to push past for a visitor. So we're always looking at ways and using our communications and marketing channels and even destination development work or product development work to help change the way visitors move throughout the region and where their interests are, and try to impact the flow of visitation away from high use areas and towards our lower use areas that have capacity for visitors. So then the third goal, improve visitor experiences. So we always want to make sure that we are supporting positive visitor experiences, because that encourages repeat visitation, or visitors telling their friends and family when they go back home how great their visit was. And that kind of authentic marketing from an actual visitor is some of the best marketing you can get out of there. So we're always looking to do better and be better. A lot of the work we're doing right now around that is helping to make our visitor experiences more usable for all, and so focused on accessibility and how do we improve that, as well as inclusion. So we have some priorities around that. The fourth thing is leverage resources through partnerships. So the more colloquial terming that we use here is other people's money. OPM is our strategy, because our budget compared to other regions and other DMOs is quite small. So just for comparison, the Oregon Coast, their annual budget, I think, is 1.5 million, or maybe it was close to 2 million last year, and ours was $300,000 last year. So a very big difference. So we're always looking at ways to partner with others to utilize their funding first, if that's possible. So whether that's Travel Oregon or some of the agencies we've been able to leverage funding through, we've applied for grants to fund some of our programs. But yeah, leveraging as many other resources and partnerships to lift our work is always a goal. And then finally, regional alignment. So we, I think the communities on Mount Hood and the communities in the Gorge are very aligned with their own individual experiences. But when visitors come, Mount Hood and the Gorge are generally experienced as one destination. And there's it's the Mount Hood Scenic Loop, which kind of embedded in the visitor experience in guidebooks and in storytelling out there for dozens of years now. So beyond anything we've been able to truly change, but that scenic loop is the kind of going 84 or doing the historic highway. You go through Hood River Valley and then around Mount Hood and down Highway 26. So that is a very common visitor experience. So we are trying to change that up to make sure that people are going to the East Gorge as well and going south of the mountain. But a lot of our programming is trying to align. The work that we're doing is both on the mountain and in the Gorge. So there's a unified experience for visitors. So with that, I was going to share just a couple wins from last year, which kind of feed into some of the work that we're doing in this new fiscal year. But one big thing that we launched last year was Tastebound. So we made a free cookbook for visitors that you can download online. We also printed a bunch of copies. We got them in the local libraries. I think somebody mentioned they look at the library. I believe it's in the Dalles Library. And so the book has 13 recipes in it from restaurants, and also we even got a couple museums in there for historic recipes from the region. Every recipe includes a local ingredient, and it includes a local beverage pairing. It also describes a visitor experience you can have around that local ingredient that's in the recipe. So whether that's picking cherries at one of our U-Pick farms and then making the cherry chorizo pizza from Solstice Pizza, which is the recipe that's in there, or there's a mushroom recipe. So then it describes kind of the best ways to do mushroom foraging and how you should go get a guide. And throughout, there's a bunch of storytelling. We've got a great piece on first foods and from the tribes in the Gorge, and then we highlight the Brigham Fish Market in Cascade Locks, which is native owned. So it's been a very cool piece to share. It also highlights all of the food trails in the region. So our first food trail was the East Gorge Food Trail. And so that trail, if you're not familiar with it, highlights restaurants and farms and wineries and breweries that all use local products. And so a lot of this book is kind of a marketing tool to celebrate the product development that we have done to bring visitors in to have a taste of the region and kind of experience this very bountiful part of Oregon. So we've done some PR around it. We've got some more plans for next year for it, but it's been great. So just for context for the Dalles, in the first issue of Tastebound, we had the Baldwin Saloon, which I know is no longer open now. So we are replacing the Baldwin Saloon's recipe for the next issue with the Riv. So we got a recipe from the Riv. And then we also have a recipe from the Discovery Center. So we have a historic recipe from the, oh my God, I'm gonna forget what they're called, but it's like the 1900 Christian Ladies of the Dalles cookbook. So I think it was from like 1900 or 1910, but a very cool fruit recipe. And then we had a recipe from Rooted in the Gorge, which is also another business that currently isn't running. So we are switching that one out in the next issue for a recipe from the Balch in Dufur. So then other things that we've done this past year, we were able to bring back PR support for the region. We didn't have that during COVID, but that's been really great, particularly for the Dalles, because the Dalles has not always had like a PR agency, and not all of our DMOs in the region do. And so with ours, her name is Emily Hibden. She has brought, gosh, I think now maybe 4 or 5 journalists out to the Dalles, and just in the past couple of months, and knows that our priority is kind of helping to highlight that East Gorge area. So there's some great stories. I forgot, I actually have pictures. There's Tastebound. There's some of the stories. So the Dalles was highlighted in the Seattle Times, another food-focused blog, and we're still waiting for additional stories to come out because the writers were just out a couple of weeks ago. We've brought on additional staffing. So we have had a rare AmeriCorps placement, which I know there's been a lot of rares in Oregon, or in the Dalles area in particular. So it's an AmeriCorps placement that we had. Her name is Kristen. She's supported on some targeted project areas for us, which added capacity to a one-staffed organization is very helpful. And we're able to have her for a second year this coming year. We've done this for the past 2 years. I think we'll do it again. We've done a hospitality thank you project. So this kind of came about because we know COVID in particular was really hard on our businesses, and visitors, when they started to come back, were also not very thankful themselves. And everybody went through a lot of stress, and there was just a lot of pressure, understaffed businesses. So we've twice now in the fall, we've gone out and kind of love bombed our communities and thanked our hospitality workers. And we've delivered bags of cookies from Packard Orchards out in the Fruit Loop to every single visitor-facing business in every one of our communities. So we send 2 or 3 people out. So the Dalles Chamber has been great about taking boxes of cookies from me and delivering them door to door, and just thanking frontline staff for the work that they've done and how much they mean to the industry. And it's just a nice little way to show appreciation. This year, we were also able to do a bunch of different partner scholarships to different trainings and meetings, and even some trade shows. And so these are anybody who's related to tourism. We've been able to send to like Travel Oregon's big conference every year. We sent a bunch of folks there. To Josiah from the Balch. We brought him to Go West, which is a trade show that he was not able to fund on his own, but he had so much success this last year. he wants to go back with his own funding in future years now. So being able to kind of get people into the system and understand what opportunities are out there for them is has been really successful for us, and we hope to continue to offer learning opportunities to partners in the future. And then also with that rare staff, we were able to kick off accessibility work, which I mentioned a little bit before, but she's been going out and going to visitor locations, so restaurants and museums, et cetera, collecting information about what a visitor with really a whole slew of different abilities might want to know before they visit a place. And so it's not all physical abilities, but it could be, maybe somebody has a child who is on the spectrum and loud sounds can be a problem for them. And so some of our businesses have quieter times during the day. So we mark that down. So this information then the business has available, should somebody call and ask, we're encouraging them to put that kind of information on their website. And then we work closely with the Columbia Gorge Tourism Alliance, which is a network for the bi-state, so Washington and Oregon side of the gorge. They've created a website called accessiblegorge.com. And so we were putting all of that information on that website as well to be a resource for visitors. All right, so things that people can get involved in this year. So I mentioned already, our resident sentiment research is going out any day now. So it's a mailed survey that will be out. We will also get a QR code or a link to share it broadly through our channels as well. And our rare, Kristen, is going to do a couple of intake sites. So like go to a couple locations in the region and talk to residents, like as they come out of the grocery store, and do like a modified version of this survey. Because our goal is to really get as broad of responses as we can across the region, and just to make sure that we're kind of accessing every area possible to get a really robust data set. We are continuing with our accessibility and usability for all work. So there's more business assessments for Kristen to work on. We're also going to be doing kind of accessibility work around trailheads and trails. And so better describing what a trail is like and getting that information out online, so people again can prepare in advance and know they can make the decision for themselves on whether or not it's right for them. I mentioned this already, Tastebound 2.0. So because there are a few businesses that were highlighted in the first round that are no longer in business. We are doing some updates. So there was another one in Estacada that we are updating, but we got grant money from the Oregon Wine Plate grant program to run this, and we've got a whole media blitz, and we're going to bring journalists in for this kind of second round of Tastebound to get better media coverage than we did when we did the first round. We are going to run grant programs and do scholarships again with our funding, but also I particularly wanted to mention that Travel Oregon, their next grant cycle just opened up last week. The focus of the grant is it's both broad and specific. So you can really apply for any tourism related project as long as it fits with one of their top priorities, which can be pretty broad, but every grant ask needs to address accessibility and or inclusion. So it may be something that you are improving an existing tourism experience to be more accessible, or maybe it is a development that is new, but it also takes into account accessibility in the planning of it, or inclusion. So, so happy to answer any questions about that. Letters of intent for the grant are due by August 18th. And then once your letter of intent is approved, you can start working on your application, which is due in mid-September. And there's probably a lot more that we're doing, but I just finished the fiscal year, so just getting started on figuring out and finalizing what we're doing this next year. And that's your brief, but maybe it was more than brief, update on some of the things that the region is doing. So with that, I will stop talking. And if you guys have any questions about what we do or what Travel Oregon does or what we might be able to offer, I'd love to answer that now if you have questions.
Lizzie, I'll probably ask you tons of questions later, personally by mail, but I also have a comment that I did copy and I'll send it to you. Tanya Brumley actually made a good suggestion. What about the wheat and barley industry, which is big over here? In that cookbook, like Double Circle Spirits, they're making a vodka and a bourbon or a whiskey from this, and they're local. We actually have a couple hard spirits that are being now made. And one of them is actually a vodka made from grapes. Wood Family Spirits is also another one. And then there's their vodka, their bourbon that they're doing, but that's not locally sourced. But I do know that Double Circle is locally sourcing some of that product to make their in the high spirits. I don't know if that's something that we can consider later. But it is a good idea, and hey, it's alcohol. So I don't think our team would object to that add addition to there somehow, some way, but it also might be something we look at, you and I, along with the CGTA is for the East Gorge Food Trail.
Yeah, that's great. I hadn't heard of Double Circle before, so excited to know about that. We do even have some cocktail recipes in the book. One of the new recipes actually is a cocktail, but it uses tequila. So I don't believe you can make tequila with wheat and barley, but we might be able to find another way just in the content of, talking about how we make spirits in the region. We have a couple different entities that are doing that, and we can give them a call out. I know that one of the I think it might be the dessert recipe from the Discovery Center. We do give a shout out to, now I'm going to forget what it is, but there is a flour maker, I think, who is based out of Kelly's. Is that right? Kelly's?
Yeah, Kelly's Wheat.
Yeah, Kelly's Wheat. So Kelly's Wheat does get a shout out in the book. So that's another thing is beyond just, fruits of the region, we tried as much as we can to give shout outs to other products that you can get in grocery stores that, you may not even be able to get from like a gift shop or something in the region. But, we had a recipe in the first one that was what was it? It was like a hot dog and a pig in a blanket, essentially. But we give a shout out to Tofurkey because Tofurkey is based in Hood River, and so you can make a vegan version. So things like that. Or Juanita's chips, I know, are also in there.
Oh yeah, we have to have them in there. Dan Spots, you have a question?
Thank you, Lisa. First off, appreciation to both of you for all the work that you're doing to really bring tourism into the Columbia Gorge. Travel Oregon is outstanding in the efforts on that side. I'm a Klickitat County resident, although I work for the city of the Dalles. And on the Washington State side, I don't think we've been quite as strategic, shall we say, at the statewide level. Do you have any? You mentioned, of course, your work with the Alliance, and that's a really important group, regional group. Do you have any updates on whether the state of Washington is taking its southern border as seriously as the state of Oregon is taking its northern border?
That's a great question. So, and I am on the board of CGTA, which is the bi-state entity, and so I get relevant, generally good updates from them, and I feel like I'm kind of confused at the moment where Washington is. So, I know where Washington is, but where the tourism is, because they were doing a really great job of building up and getting funding, and then they were like cut from the budget last year, I think in one of the drafts, but I believe they are still strong in terms of funding, but they are still building and growing what they can do. So their budget is still nowhere near Travel Oregon's budget, and being able to have it for kind of many years to build solid programs. So I know that is a challenge. They are structured in a way where they do have kind of designated regional entities. I'm not sure if they are, I don't think that they are necessarily full-time staff of Washington Tourism. I think they are people who exist in those regions who are kind of representing the regions. And one of the downsides, I would say, for Washington is that the Washington side of the Gorge is part of the Vancouver region as well. So it is combined with a very large metro area. And those are two very different experiences. So that is what's nice about us is our Gorge and Portland, we work really closely together, but we are two different experiences, which is kind of easier to align with. I know that CGTA has been able to get grant funding from Washington Tourism for their programs, and definitely the state entity is appreciating and respecting all of the work that the Gorge has done on both sides of the state and trying to learn from that and bring that to other regions in the state. So there is some support, but I think you are correct in that the level of engagement and kind of structural support is still, it's not nowhere near what we have in Oregon. And I think we are very lucky. I used to work for Visit California, and the support that they provide for anything beyond their main cities is very different than what we get in Oregon. That is the nicest way I can say that. But the structure of having and Travel or Visit California is actually looking at Travel Oregon's regional program and trying to replicate it because I think they've realized that they need to do better at that. But compared to other states, I think we do have a structure that other states look up to and are trying to replicate in their own places, because Oregon does do that really well. So hopefully Washington will come around, but they've recognized how well things go in the Gorge in particular, and have given out funding to CGTA to support the Washington side of the Gorge in the past. So hopefully that can continue.
All right, thank you. And thank you for your earlier point too about the Gorge does not end at Multnomah Falls or Hood River. Thank you very much. It doesn't end at the Dalles, but we definitely are part of it. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Lizzie works tirelessly as reminding people, along with me. I've emailed our news channels repeatedly that the Gorge does not stop, where they said at the end of the Gorge and they name a town and it's to the west of us. So we're working on that. We are, but it's a tough one. So it's all perception and hype, for lack of better words. But Rob, you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much for coming on, Lizzie. I'm going to take my hand down. There we go. I do a lot of camping in the Gorge. I go out, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the spring already. I've been down in the Gorge to separate campgrounds. How much influence do you have on entities like the Forest Service or state parks and rec? I mean, for example, I was at Wyeth last weekend, and the grass there is overgrown. They haven't obviously mowed it probably this year. You know, you pull up in your camp space and it's full of stickers. People have tents out on the grass. It's full of stickers and, 2 foot tall knee-high grass. Not that it's super thick because it's been tracked down, but in light of the fire situation, I'm looking around, there's so much fuel in that little campground that if someone threw a cigarette down, the whole Gorge would go up. Not to mention, when I invite people to my house, I like to mow my backyard first for, make it look nice. I'm just curious, do you have any impact? I know you don't do it, but can you say something to somebody?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I work very closely with the agency partners in the region. And so that is state parks, Forest Service, even ODOT. I'm on, we meet once a month now. There is even a bi-state recreation meeting that occurs that all of those like land manager agency partners join, and then often commissioners from the counties will join, where we get updates. And so this is feedback that I can absolutely share back with them. But what I know from those meetings in particular is they have all had significant staffing challenges, essentially since COVID. But so for state parks, it's really hard because they had to let go of a significant amount of staff, and then getting people to come back has been challenging for them. and Forest Service just can't fill positions. And a lot of people are kind of moving around, which they always do within Forest Service or to other kind of federal departments. But they have had a really hard time getting seasonal workers in the numbers that they've had in the past, and in the numbers that they need to kind of address all of the maintenance issues out there. So staffing is kind of, I think, probably one of the main challenges there, but I'm happy to share that information. And anytime you have feedback or you see something, feel free to share it with Lisa, and she can share it up with me or email me directly. And I know the folks to get it to, and see if we can find out what the situation is, and maybe it's something they just somehow have missed and can try to catch up on.
No, I appreciate that. Again, I would be just very concerned for fire danger. We're, extreme level. And I mean, can they get a volunteer program going? I mean, how many people, would be willing, if they stepped up a program like that, to possibly go out and hop on a riding lawnmower and buzz around the park for an hour? I mean, I think it'd be fun personally. 10 people could do an awful lot of work in our gorge if they just had something like that. Maybe that's the next step. I don't know. Anyway, just thoughts.
Yeah, no, great idea. Thank you. Any other questions?
I know that the grant just opened, and I'll get with you because I want to run some ideas by you, but it sounds sort of broad and sort of not.
Correct.
As Travel Oregon can do, are you our best resource to bounce ideas and see if that's something conducive that we could apply for? Are you our source? Okay.
Yes, and I'm also, it's kind of written into the guidelines that they just posted. They are encouraging anybody who's interested in submitting a letter of intent for the grant to reach out to their RDMO. And so that would be me for you guys to talk about the ideas, because I've been in so many conversations with Travel Oregon over the past year of trying to figure out what this next grant cycle should be. And just working with them on past grants, I have a pretty solid idea of the things that they like to fund, things that they don't like to fund, and kind of what they're looking for, and also how to hit on their interest areas. If there's a side thing that you can mention that I'm like, oh God, Travel Oregon will fund anything that mentions a food trail, because the food trails kind of are one of their products. Things like that. Yeah, I have a lot of reference material in my head that I am happy to share and kind of run through those filters to help folks out.
Great, that's good to know. I'll be sending my ideas.
Excellent.
Dan?
Thank you again, Lisa. So this is day 4 on my new job, so I'm still drinking from a fire hose, but I know that one of my roles will be liaison to the Main Street group in the Dalles. And just as a point of awareness, they are rebuilding. Former city councilor, an outstanding individual, Chris Sukin, is interim president of Main Street right now, as they are in the process this week and for the next couple of weeks of interviewing new board members. But as that settles in and there's greater stability and a growth plan there, I would love to meet with you and Lisa, and just to be sure that that we introduce you to those new board members, and that there's coordination and collaboration going on. So love to keep posted with both of you on that one. Lisa, I know you're tracking it. We've talked and we'll continue to talk. I'd like to see where that goes. So thank you.
Great.
Any other questions this morning? Lizzie, that was great info, and I'm loving our new logo.
Yay!
Yes, it's so much better. I'm so much better. I love it. It just adds a whole new element just seeing it up there. You guys do not understand how long it took us and the process it took us to get to this point, and we're still not all quite done, but we're getting there. And but it was kind of fun to see it on the thingy with the font. This is the old one. I just put it in the chat. There's our old logo. So as you can imagine, we love it that we've come to this century and kind of had fun and exploration. But I'll tell you, whenever, as you all know, when you rebrand, it's a process. And it's still a process over the next year as we all change and do things and decide. When you have 4 very strong DMOs in your group that all have different perceptions and all live in different areas of your region. So, but Lizzie did a great job in bringing us together and working with the company. And you know, I know the Dalles is important with tourism, and that's what I do, and with the Explore the Dalles logo and that branding. But it's just as important for me to be strong in our Hood Gorge region. As she mentioned, Emily with the PR just brought 4 FAM tours. Those are familiarization tours, for those of you who don't know what that is. And that's where we're bringing writers and publications to specific areas for a specific reason. And then they're hopefully going to fall in love with everything that we have and go back and write this fabulous article in print and digital, or on the social media platforms, which will go quite further than any advertisement ever will. And then hopefully be with that, we'll bring people to the region for that purpose, and then discovering more. So we've been fortunate. The last 4 had to do with adventures, outdoor rec, and food. That Foodista has quite the distribution and numbers that go with that. I did some digging, and we are in there as the East Gorge Food Trail, which most of that is the Dalles. It starts a little bit on the other side of Mosier and goes all the way to Dufur. But there's people all along that in these areas that have to locally source a percentage of their food on their menu in order to be on that food trail. And so a lot of our restaurants are there if they've met that percentage. And then we're constantly working with CGTA if there's new people here that can be on that and qualify. And then Kristen, the rare student that she mentioned, is for the entire region, but we're very fortunate that she sits her chair right here in our office. So she lives in the Dalles, and so she's here, so she gets to hear what all of us are discussing or cussing in our office about, the frustrations with transportation and those things. And then she's like brainstorms with us once in a while too. And then she gets to take that back to Lizzie. So we feel like we have a little extra communication pipeline to Lizzie through Kristen, and she'll be here this next year, still using us as home base, but I'll tell you right now, she's not here very often. And she started texting me because she's like, okay, I'm just not coming in the office today because this office has all moms and we worry when someone doesn't show up. So she's learned that. Now she just texts us or calls us and says, no, I'm not in the office today, but I'm not in an accident somewhere. So, but we love her, and she's doing some really good work, and we're excited about the accessibility assessment of our businesses and making sure that we meet that amazing demographic of those who have a hindrance or an inability to travel and get around like the rest of us. And so this will hopefully give them some ideas of where they can go and feel comfortable and safe. And so we're always looking for those different things to include that demographic also. I appreciate Lizzie. I'm just going to give kudos right here. She is my person when I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated and I can't get anywhere. So I call her up and say, talk me off the edge, get me off that ledge before I jump. I don't know what to do or where to go or even how to connect and get this message across. So Lizzie's been great for being not only my sounding board, but she's also got such a wealth of knowledge in the tourism world. And I feel like I get a little kudos because I helped hire her. I was on
Lisa did a great job in hiring me.
I was on the committee, and I felt like that was great. We interviewed everybody, and Lizzie was a natural fit with all our crazy personalities. She we had to be a little bit up there in order to deal with all of us. And the change, she's been through several changes with all of the different DMOs. I think the only one that's this, oh, Samara and I are the only ones that are the same. So Mount Hood territory in the Dalles, the rest have shifted a few times. And she just goes with the flow. So we could not do what we do in the Dalles without the Hood Gorge region. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I have to have them because it makes our budget go so much further. We're competing with budgets that are double and triple of what ours is in the Dalles in our own region, sometimes quadruple. Actually quadruple. And so as you can imagine, the Dalles has to make every penny effort matter. And Lizzie helps me get that co-op or, combined. And so that helps the Dalles a lot, make every dollar go further on that piece of it. So she is essential. The whole organization is essential for the Dalles in helping us to promote. So I felt like you guys needed to hear a little bit about the other part of my job. So yes, thank you so much, Lizzie. Any other last comment?
you.
1 minute. No? All right, everybody, it is Thursday. That means we're this close to the weekend. And there is a ton of stuff going on. I did put a link in your chat regarding a workshop that we're offering next Tuesday. It's called Chambers of the Future, but this is for everybody. It's chamber centric, it's AI, it's digital marketing, and some other trends that are happening. And this is essential information on how you can be utilizing a tool to be more efficient, not replacing, but more efficient, but also some of the safeguards of using this tool. And it is offered from 11 to 2 on Tuesday. It's $25, and that includes a buffet lunch cooked by Tammy from The Hook. And so it's going to be good, and it's going to look gorgeous, and it's up at the college. But I need registrations by Friday afternoon, so I know how much food to tell Tammy to cook. We're offering this. Frank Kinney and Norma Davey are coming. They travel all over the United States helping chambers and their community members, and they will be coming through here and staying overnight in the Dalles and helping me. The reason we got this, we are paying for this to bring them here, and we got this because I have been friends with Frank for about 15 years now, and so he's been a force in the chamber world. And as far as especially in marketing and social media, I always come away with at least 5 tools and things I should be doing different when I talk to him. So essential for anybody, but it will be on next Tuesday. So spread the word if you know of anybody that could get their foot in the door with this kind of information. With that, everything else is on thedallschamber.com, and we will see you next week. Our guest is Tara Langley. She is ODOT, and she is our representative and management for also with the Historic Columbia Highway. I sit on that commission. And all of the advisory things through that. So she'll be giving us some updates of what's happening on that magical connection from Troutdale to the Dalles. It's a little further off than I would hoped, but they're making progress, and she'll be here with some updates and questions and bringing information to us. So with that, everybody guys, have a great rest of the week and a fabulous weekend. Try to stay cool and check on your neighbors to make sure that they're okay too. Thanks, and take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.